Welcome to the Gus Alva Perspective, a video cast that's earmarked to embrace gratitude and abundance over the mindset of fear and scarcity, which unfortunately runs rampant at the present time. Today's a very interesting day because I get an opportunity of being able to spend some time with my lovely daughter, Phoebe, and I'm particularly fiercely proud of her for multiple reasons. But she's here with me today to discuss the topic that we wanted to address, and that is the opioid epidemic that I previously had mentioned in another video cast. Today is an important day because the FDA cleared now the ability to be able to obtain Narcan over the counter as opposed to only being able to get it via a medical prescription. This is something that could be life-saving, and particularly in light of the fact that this is a topic that's near and dear to both of us. Unfortunately, a member of our family has been lost to this opioid epidemic. And Phoebe, why don't you tell us a little bit about your contributions with Gauchos for Recovery and your motivation for being involved with this organization?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really grateful to be able to be here and talk about all these things that I'm very passionate about. So, unfortunately, my brother passed away due to an accidental opioid overdose. And when this happened, I was very shocked and confused. And looking back, I was just so naive to all of these things. And after he passed away, it became one of my missions to really educate myself on the opioid epidemic, on harm reduction, and to be able to help people in ways that I wasn't able to help myself. I was completely naive, but it wasn't my fault. It's just the way that the world is. Young people aren't really taught all of these things that we really, at this point in time, should know about. So I have joined a group at UCSB called Gauchos for Recovery. This is the harm reduction facility. And through that job, I'm able to distribute naloxone, which is an opioid overdose reversal drug. I give out free fentanyl test kits so that college students and community members can test their drugs and make sure that they're not laced with fentanyl. And I also give a lot of trainings on overdose response and prevention. So I've presented to most of the Greek life at UCSB, to a bunch of different clubs and organizations to help educate people on things that I wish that I knew about so that I maybe could have helped my brother, Tristan Alva. He was a beautiful, amazing, talented, wonderful person and artist. And he was lost, unfortunately, at the age of 22. And I'm almost at that age, and it's just really obviously heartbreaking to think about the fact that he lost his life to something that was just it's just such a huge problem right now in this country and just kind of everywhere in the world right now. And so I'm doing everything that I can to help other people prevent those situations from happening in their own life and to honor my brother. Yeah, so
And we're definitely appreciative of that. Recently, when if you take a look at one of the previous video casts that we did, we were talking about ISO, which is 20 times more potent than fentanyl. And now there's more talk of this zombifying drug, tranq, which is a veterinarian drug that is now being utilized to cut opiates as well as stimulants, but creating additional havoc for our youth. I thought this would be a phenomenal opportunity, not only to honor my son's memory, but also to be able to speak about some of the efforts that are being done at several of our learning institutions. Phoebe is a junior at the University of California in Santa Barbara, and she's a very gifted individual. You can tell I'm a proud father because she's not only majoring in two areas, in psychology and theater. She's an honor student in both, but she's also involved with this amazing program. Phoebe, there are very few universities that have a harm reduction program like this. Can you tell us more about this, and how many years has this been going on, and what the impact that you guys have within the community?
yeah. So a shockingly small amount of universities across the country actually have harm reduction facilities. We're one of the few UCs, in fact, that have a harm reduction facility on campus that's more than just one therapist or Narcan being available at the school pharmacy. So Gauchos for Recovery was founded 10 years ago, and as of last year, they introduced a new job, which is an overdose prevention peer. And I got hired into that job last year, and I basically got to design the job in the way in which I believed would help prevent overdoses. So I started to do a lot of presentations. We throw an annual music and art festival in honor of harm reduction, which I'm planning out right now, called Generation Recovery. Last year, we handed out over 200 boxes of Narcan and 600 fentanyl test kits. I have begun doing that work, but it's so important because college students oftentimes are a group of individuals who don't really believe that they might need something like Narcan or fentanyl test kits, but are actually one of the highest risk groups. When you come to school, it's natural to be curious and want to experiment with things. So at Gauchos for Recovery, something that we really, really try to impress into students in the community at the school is that it's okay to want to use or to want to experiment, as long as you're doing it safely and with the education of knowing exactly what you're doing and being able to keep your friends and your loved ones safe. So something that I see a lot when I'm doing overdose prevention trainings is that students will look down or look away or not want to have to talk about these taboo things. And so something that I really have to impress to everybody is that, this is not about you. This is not about you. If you're not using, that's okay. That's great. But you never know when the person next to you might be struggling, or your best friend, or somebody that you're next to at a party. Substance dependency can often come out of nowhere. You never expect to become addicted to something, and it can become a really shameful and private, secretive thing. And not a lot of people are talking about harm reduction in the way that it needs to be talked about. So opening up that conversation, telling people that there are places you can go, there are things you can do, there are resources available to you to help you. That allows students to then be sharing this information with their friends. And I see people around my campus now carrying around Narcan. I know that at several of the Greek chapters in Isla Vista, they all have Narcan in all their common spaces and their satellite houses, and it's saved a lot of lives. And so that is what is so important to me about this work, is just spreading that information and allowing people to be resources for their friends.
Yeah, it's akin to being aware of how to do a Heimlich maneuver, or being able to know how to do chest compression, so as to be able to keep that airway open and circulation occurring within the vasculature. And we now see different resources at airports where people are being encouraged to learn and practice life-saving things. And this is certainly one of those life-saving maneuvers that could help out, innumerable individuals. And tell us more about what you would typically help your peers with, instructing them as to the different resources that you have available, Phoebe.
Yes. So we have a table that's set out in front of our office every single day of the week except for Saturdays. And people can just come up and get as much Narcan and as many fentanyl test kits as they could possibly dream of. So it's a wonderful free resource. So if a student were to come up to me and ask me, what's going on? What is this? I can give you a quick tutorial.
Please do.
What I would say. So this has been opened, but this is a fentanyl test kit. So if you or someone else is using a drug and you want to test it and make sure that it's not laced with fentanyl, all you have to do is combine a pinch of the drug with a cap full of water, and dip the test strip in, take it out of the container. It'll look like this. You want to dip the test strip in the water, hold it there and let it dry for about a minute. And when it dries, it'll come back with either one line or two indicating positive or negative for fentanyl. So something really important to note about this is that there's this thing called the chocolate chip cookie effect, in which fentanyl tends to cling to itself. It clusters into pieces away from the rest of the drug. So when you are testing a drug, you want to make sure that it is extremely well mixed together. Otherwise, you could get a false negative. Otherwise, you want to be testing every part of the drug that you use. So that's how you use a fentanyl test strip. Very, very easy to do. I tell everybody, I'm like, take it with you when you go to concerts, when you go to parties, hand them out to your friends. We give every student who comes in a bag a box of Narcan and 3 fentanyl test kits, just in case they want to share. And then this is Narcan. So if somebody is showing signs of an overdose, and you want to be able to help them, Narcan is really important to have. Narcan is the nasal spray version of naloxone. Naloxone is the opioid antagonist drug overdose reversal drug. Narcan is the nasal spray version. There's also an EpiPen injectable version, and there's a syringe injectable version. But Narcan we find is the most easy to use and accessible. So that's what we give out. And so first you want to do is see if somebody might be showing signs of an overdose. So what that will look like is the skin is turning pale or blue, breathing is slowing down and becoming irregular. Somebody might seem like they're falling asleep. So if somebody seems like they're falling asleep, but you can't get them to wake up, that is a likely sign of an overdose. And even if you're not sure that they're overdosing, they might be, have had also alcohol or something like that, you should still give them Narcan because it won't hurt them. So I could take Narcan right now and it would do nothing to me, but if you were overdosing and I gave you Narcan, it would save your life. So always just try it anyways. So you see them overdosing, next thing you want to do is try to see if they're responsive. So shout their name, give them a sternum rub, you can shake them, you can be kind of forceful. You obviously don't want to hurt them, but you want to see if they're responsive. And if they're not, you want to move on to the next step, which is response. So have them lay flat on their back, tilt their chin up to open up their airway a little bit, and then you'll take your Narcan out of the box. There are 2 doses of Narcan in every box. So what you want to do is take it out of the container. It looks like any other nasal spray. Put it up one of their nostrils and inject the dose by pressing on the red tab right here. Hold that position for about 30 seconds to a minute while you or someone else calls 911. So this is really, really important because Narcan only lasts about 30 minutes to an hour, and oftentimes opioids can last a lot longer. So someone could actually overdose again after the Narcan wears off. So it's really, really important to get them into professional medical care. This is also an obstacle though, because oftentimes people are scared to call 911. It's completely understandable. If you are in a room where there's other drugs around, or maybe you gave the person the drug, maybe you yourself are on the drug that person took, you don't want to get in trouble or whatever might happen if you call 911. So people will be scared to call even if their friend or loved one is overdosing. So this is when I tell people about the Good Samaritan Law, which is a really amazing law in California and several other states in the US, which says if you call 911 to help save someone's life, all the responders can do is respond to that one person and leave. They won't take any personal information. You can't get in trouble. So that really encourages people to call 911, because not calling 911 is just as dangerous as the overdose itself. So once you've called 911, you can do chest compressions if you know CPR. If not, leave them alone. And after about 2 minutes, if they still haven't woken up and the responders aren't there, you can give them the second dose in their other nostril. Again, there's no such thing as too much Narcan. And at that point, that person should be awake. Just let them lie on their side in their recovery position. Don't give them water. Don't give them food. Just let them calm down, be where they are. This will send somebody into automatic withdrawal. So there might be an array of reactions. Just let that person be there until responders can get there, and you've successfully used Narcan, save someone's life.
And by the way, acute withdrawal is uncomfortable, but it's life-saving in the case of having utilized an opioid antagonist. I'm reminded right now, as Phoebe was mentioning this, speaking with her peers, but just yesterday I saw a patient who inadvertently had been apprised by one of her friends that opiates would be a phenomenal way of getting rid of anxiety, which is exactly the wrong thing to do. But over the past 5 months, she had been getting opiates that were being brought in from Mexico. And unfortunately, you sometimes don't know how, and even medications that quote unquote are prescription grade have actually been tinged with fentanyl and additional things that might be potentially lethal. And in that case, the most important thing that I did was to educate her husband and herself as to availing themselves to Narcan and sent over a prescription. At the present time, physicians are requested to make sure that there's always a prescription for Narcan, even if they didn't necessarily prescribe an opiate, if they're aware that that patient is taking an opiate, because what Phoebe just described right now could save a life. Phoebe, aside from all her talents, is also a pretty talented musician. She plays bass for a band, and so she also gets the opportunity of dispensing Narcan as well as different fentanyl strips or opiate strips, as far as that
Test
goes,
strips.
test strips at her venues. But I just thought that this segment would be perfectly suited to be able to initiate a dialogue with people that are very involved with some of the topics that we're going to be interested in, but also having the opportunity of showcasing someone who is very proactive about helping her peers and also in honoring a family member that is no longer with us. But by spreading this message, we can certainly avert tragedies in other families, other households, and through this, have the mindset of gratitude over the fact that we can be educated, we can have resources, and we can honor in our minds and heart those individuals that are no longer with us, but that we can at least incorporate with sending a message to others that there is aid for them should they want to avail themselves to it. Thank you again, Phoebe, for joining us, and thank you all for spending time with us on this audio cast, or video cast, I should say.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.